Welcome to Sew Very Easy. My name is Laura, and a couple of years ago I had good intentions of getting this quilt top made, quilted, bound so that I could use it for Christmas. Well, that didn't happen, but this year I am going to get it quilted. Since it is a fun panel, I'm going to do a fun free motion stitch, so it's going to go together quick and easy. I'm going to do clouds and stars. Now we're going to be able to do this if you can draw a letter C and if you can do the childhood 5-pointed star, you are going to be able to do this pattern. You're going to be able to do it on a sit-down machine or a domestic machine. So let's take a look at how those shapes are going to go together to make a good Christmas background for my Christmas panel. So our 5-pointed star is simply that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. While I quilt, I actually will say 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Those stars are going to go with the letter C that we're going to go back on, and you probably have seen me do this quite often with some loops around it. When we do that C, we're going to do one C. Be sure to come out of the C, not coming in. If you come in, it's just a little bit more difficult to get out. So we're going to do the C and go back on the C. And then just do big little loopy C's around the outside. And that's going to give us sort of a moon cloud look that's going to match our stars. So it won't matter where you start on the quilt. This is going to be an all-over design. So we can start with that star and then come into that letter C, come out, do some clouds, come back, and if we need to travel, we can go back somewhere, come up, do our star, come back out, continue our clouds, come out if we need, and then do our star. So this has given us stars, moons, and little clouds. Now when you go to do this, your C's and your stars are going to be unique to you. Your C's might be a little bit long. That's fine. They might be big, fat, round ones. That's fine too. Don't try to concentrate so much on the shape. Do what you feel comfortable doing, and then this will go together quick and easy. And it won't matter of the size. Whatever size you're comfortable doing is going to be fine. I'm going to be using blue thread, and I'm also going to quilt from the back of the quilt, and that way you're going to be able to see the stitching. So here's this fun panel that I just put a nice fun edge on. There is a lot of sky fabric in here, and that's why I want to duplicate those stars and those clouds. Now you can quilt from this right side, but I really want to show you how we can do all of those little loops. So I'm going to be working from the back side. So I have my quilt basted and I'm ready to go. I love quilting from the back, but when I do put a row of pins around the outside. Now I can see those pins right here, and that way it kind of gives me an idea where the edge of that quilt is going to be. And it's very easy for get my hand underneath to take out those pins as I go along. But by quilting on the back, it's easier to see on a darker fabric. Because this is going to be an all-over pattern, I'm really not worried about where those stars or the moons fall. And if I'm quilting in this area with blue thread that matches, it's not as easy to see my stitches. But if I am quilting on a background that happens to be a light color, I definitely will be able to see my stitching. And if you're wondering, I do have a video about these pins. They're just basic pins with these covers on them. Just makes them easy to remove and easy to see. So let's get this under the machine. So the first thing I'm going to do is pull that bobbin thread up to the top. And that way I'm going to be able to tie them off. This area is where I'm going to work on, so I'll remove those pins. I'm going to start with my 5-pointed star that I would do as a child. And I really do count to myself. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Yay, my first star is done. Now we'll move into a letter C and some clouds. And I'm not worrying about the size of the C or where I'm going to stop and start those clouds. So I have my star, my moon, and my clouds. I'm going to come back out, and whatever I feel like, I'm going to do next. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. When I do that 5th one, I do try to come back to my line so that I close up that star. So I have that star, the line that's come out, and my 5th one, I've hit that point. That way I can have an option into what direction to go. I can come out and go into one direction or go into another direction. Hitting that line is just going to give me options. And I can always come back out and trace over top of that cloud. That's going to just make a puffier cloud. So you can really start to see how these stars and clouds are all going to get together. Do you like to do small quilting? You can do small stars and small clouds, or you can keep them big. As I'm quilting, I've come to one of these border pins. This is giving me an idea on where that edge of the quilt is on that side. But I will need to remove that pin and take a peek and make sure that the fabric is staying in this direction and that it's not folding down. And now I can continue. So I've stitched quite close to that line, but if I went over, I'm fine with that too. And there's another area where I've hit that line, so I now have a choice of the direction that I want to come out of. So here's a look at the background with all those stars and loops. When we turn it over, the quilt has a nice finish. And of course we can see that pattern more in that light fabric than we can in that dark fabric. When we turn it over, we might notice that there's a little area along the border that could be stitched. So we can take this right to the machine and this time quilt it with this side up and just do a little loop or a shape to fill in these little areas. I wasn't worried about stitching off of the quilt because what I will do now is I will do a row of stitching all the way along that edge. Now you'll see a white row of stitching. That white row of stitching I do after I finish every quilt top. I quickly will run a row of stitching a scant 1/4 inch to that edge. And that way, if I don't get it done right away, I'm not worried about these seams coming apart. So now I will go back in and stitch pretty much on that line all the way around and then trim it off. That little extra row of stitching is going to hold all of those stitches on just the same as we would have any of these sections as we are piecing it. Once I've done that row of stitching, then I can trim that down, put the binding on, and I'm done. So we have loops and stars and moons throughout the entire quilt. I did choose that blue thread so it really didn't disturb this front panel. And I really like the way it looks on the side. This is a very quick pattern to do because we're not having to mark the quilt. We just get to sit down and just keep filling in the spots until we get it done. And it doesn't matter the size of the stars, the moons, or those little clouds. Now, if you like to do them small, that's fine. But if your motion ends up a little bit bigger, that's good too. And once we get into that rhythm, it really is a lot of fun. And that star is just the basic shape that we learned when we were in school. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's almost like ballet. Thank you for joining me today on Sew Very Easy. Feel free to subscribe. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and I do have a newsletter, all under Sew Very Easy. Thank you for joining me today. Bye for now.